All right, students protesting are flaring up, or student protests are flaring up in KZN. Mangosuthu University of Technology. Students there have blockaded the roads in and out of Umlazi. Yesterday, we remind you, there was a blockade at the institution's main entrance with burning tyres and debris. It seems to be the same situation this morning. It's understood it is part of the national shutdown of higher learning campaigns, calling for the scrapping of historical debt and financial exclusion, among other concerns. Let's take you to that scene now, where my colleague Des Ntathia is outside Mangosuthu University of Technology in Umlazi. And Des, as we come to you, we're seeing debris in the road. A moment ago, I saw police firing what I imagine to be rubber bullets, and now we have student protests flaring up again. What's the latest?
That's right, Gareth. In fact, this main road, as you enter Umlazi, is blocked off. You can see now that students have gathered behind the gates of the Mangosuthu University of Technology. They're standing off with police. You'll see police are now trying to stop them from throwing rocks from the other side of that gate. Just around us now, you've got members of the POP from the SA that are here. The road in between them is completely covered with debris. Now, this has been going on since the early hours of this morning. Some reports saying that this happened just after 7 o'clock, and there have been these running battles between police as well as the students. Now, as you mentioned, the issues are around things like free registration, as well as them saying that they don't want to be financially. Get over here to the side now, Gareth, just to give you a picture of what's happening. This is not the first day of these protests, I might add. This has happened earlier in the week here at MUT, where they had blockaded the road, but fortunately police in that instance had managed to bring it to an end fairly quickly.
So the police on the scene now. I imagine we've also seen this morning campus security. What is the reaction from the management of Mangosuthu University of Technology, Deson?
It's interesting that you say that, Gareth, because I just noticed a member of the communication department walking past me a short while ago, but because of all of the chaos out here, we didn't actually get an opportunity to speak, so I'm hoping to get him quickly. I'll give you an idea of what the scene looks like right now. You'll see that there are people that are still gathered, some of them students further on down the road, so they've managed to stay away from all of this chaos that's unfolding here. But the biggest problem right now is that the rocks that are flying out of this out of the gates of the university are aimed directly at the police, and as well as anyone that is standing here along the roadside, including some of the vendors that normally trade next to the university. As a result of that, they've had to shut down this entire road. You know that also with morning traffic, that's causing a bit of a problem further down. What's more concerning is that this has already been going on for a few hours, and police have not been able to enter and arrest those perpetrators that are behind those gates, because it's very difficult to see what's going on. You see that they now have a shield, Gareth. This is what they've been using to come forward. There's a rock coming right towards us. Sorry, Gareth.
All right, if you have just joined us 7 minutes after 9 o'clock. All right, Jason, I'm going to ask you to move to a safer position. If you've just joined us, this is Newslink.
Come outside, Gareth. They're now. We've just taken cover behind a tree here.
Seven minutes after 9 o'clock here.
Okay, they've now stepped out onto the road, Gareth.
All right,
they've moved in. Police are. They are rocks in our direction now.
All right, Jason, I'm going to ask you and your camera person to rather move away from there. If you are able to move away from that tree, rather find a safer spot. If you have just joined us, this is Newslink on eNCA. It's 8 minutes after 9 o'clock. These are live visuals from outside the Mangosuthu University of Technology. Police on the scene as students are protesting at the gates of the university. They are now forcing the police and our reporter, Jason Tathia, there he is, to move back. They were staying behind those gates just a few moments ago. They were carrying out what looked to me like mattresses and possibly tables to try and fend off what I imagine is the rubber bullets being fired at them by those police officers on the ground. Jason, I think you're at a slightly safer distance now. Are you and our camera person okay? And what are the police saying they're going to try and do about this? They clearly aren't able to hold them off.
That's right. In fact, this group of students, and it doesn't look to be a very long, basically holding the university to ransom at this point. They've taken over the property. Police have not been able to get close. There are rocks still coming towards as far away as they are. I just want to step over to the side here. You see that police are preparing once again. But remember, their hands are also tied to a certain extent because there's only so much that they can do, and beyond the stun grenades and the rubber bullets, which they've already used, there's little that they can do to actually stop these students from taking over using as minimal force as they can. It seems like the attack is escalating now, Gareth. You'll see that they're now also throwing bottles in this direction in addition to the stones. I mentioned that shield. That is exactly what they're using to come out further onto the road. Police are now starting to move in once again. Let's follow this officer. Neil, watch out. Sorry, I'm just warning our camera person here to be careful because I'm really flying. We're just going to get closer to a tree now. And that's it. Police are moving in towards these students, but they do have a shield that's protecting them. So that's how they, I guess, are feeling brave enough to come out into the roadway and attack police. It's going to be interesting to hear what management has to say as soon as I get an opportunity to speak to them, Gareth, because although it's not an unusual situation here, we've seen this over the years, it certainly is an untenable one, not just for the university community, but also residents that are living around here. As I mentioned earlier, they have basically taken over this part of the university now and are doing as they please. I haven't had an opportunity, obviously because of the blockade at the front, to go inside, but there were reports of some damage to some of the university property amid these protests.
And I think it's important.
Police once again off to our side here, regrouping.
I think it's important to just remind viewers who have just joined us as well about what this protest is about. Obviously, the police trying to stop rocks and bottles flying at them and at you as well, and members of the public, Desmond. But essentially, the police are trying to stop the destruction of the property inside that complex. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, this is university property. We know in the past there's been serious damage that has been caused here, millions, in fact, not just at this university, but many others around Durban as a result of these student protests. And this places the university management in a very difficult situation because they have to generally try as far as possible not to compromise the academic year. But at the same time, when the facilities are damaged to this extent, difficult task to balance both of those things. I mean, these are certainly not new issues that we are talking about. We've covered these very issues at this university before, but it seems to be almost a guarantee that as the year starts, there will be some kind of standoff between students and management, and very often it's the streets that look like this. But one thing that is very concerning this time around is that it seems that the student protests, or the violence at these protests, has escalated. And I guess it speaks to the frustration on both sides. The frustration of students on the one side and with police now. Some of the incidents that we've seen recently also being limited in exactly.
We are having a little bit of audio breakup from you, Dason. For those viewers at home who are watching this, I'm sure you'll understand Dason and our camera person trying to find shelter, and you can imagine that sometimes the connection between the microphone and us is going to break up. I think we are going to stay with us for the moment here on Newslink. I imagine, Dason, that the management of Mangosuthu University Technology are obviously watching this as well. So if there are any management watching this, you can clearly see where Dason is, and I think it's important for you to come out and comment and at least try and explain the situation as it is. Dason, give me a sense of numbers. Obviously, our camera is moving around quite a bit. Does this seem to be the core group, or are you seeing other students behind the gates to your left?
Yeah, so this is the interesting thing as that onslaught picks up again, Gareth, is that the numbers are generally not that big when it comes to these violent attacks. You normally find that the student protests in general will have large numbers. You'll see them now moving out into the street again, Gareth. But when it comes to those that are the ones picking up rocks and bottles and aiming at police, those are generally small numbers. And the extent of them is what you're seeing now on your screen. This is the group that is taking on police directly, although the broader protest was slightly larger than this. But what's also making it difficult is that one can't really see beyond the gates. You'll see police moving in now, Gareth. This seems to be about the closest that the two groups have gotten between the police and the protesting students. They're now retreating and they're going back into the university. But that's exactly what I was saying, that it's a bit difficult to see beyond those gates and beyond the barricades that they've put up exactly who else is on the other end. I mean, with the exception of a few that we can see at the front line, it could be other students that are also coming out, and it's just that the numbers are not really changing. I'd probably put it, from where I'm standing, Gareth, at not more than 30 or 40 that are really here at the front line. But as I mentioned, there could be others that are also further into the university right now.
Do we have any sense, Dason, as I once again ask you to be safe, there are rocks and bottles flying your direction as well, any sense on campus security? We're obviously seeing SAPs outside. Have you seen anybody inside from a security perspective?
I haven't been able to get close enough to see, but they're certainly not here on the roadside. They may well be inside the university. It's one of the things that I do want to check in with university management about as well, just about the security levels inside campus, because it's obviously a huge concern, not just for the people outside here, but the staff that would have reported to the university as well. So it would be interesting for us to get an update just a bit later on.
Yeah, I think
how they managed to get them out and where those security officials are.
Yeah, I think you got your hands slightly full by trying to avoid rocks and bottles flying at you, Des, and that's the story for later, where we get reaction from management. But let's not forget this kind of fees must fall and the scrapping of historical debt. Even though we are focusing on it right now, this is a years-old problem. I think we go back to, 2015, 2016, when we first saw the fees must fall movement, not as violent at first, but we saw very, very chaotic scenes at Wits University and other universities as well. Just remind viewers, if you can, do it while avoiding flying debris. This seems to be not just about the fee increases, but the scrapping of historical debt. And those numbers, the fees that these students owe, are significant.
Exactly. And it's what I spoke to earlier as well, Gareth, about the fact that this is almost an indication of the frustration. I mean, there is certainly no excuse for breaking the law, but it's the escalating violence has been an indication of how frustrated some students are with that concept of exclusion that they're talking about. They're saying that essentially they can't register because of the monies that are owed. And you talk about 2015 and 2016. And it's a time that I think my colleagues and I remember very well, because in about 2016, if memory serves, Gareth, I think I spent around 7 or 8 weeks covering these protests here in KZN and around the same issues. And here we are, 5 years later, and we some of the and the same problems. And it concerns me because if this is not something that is resolved in some way, this is going to be how the beginning of every year is marked going forward, and it just can't be.
Well, it's
completely untenable.
We're seeing two of the students.
You will notice that that group that we were talking about has moved out onto the main road. They've now gathered, they're congregating. They've brought out mattresses, which you should be able to see now, that they are using as shields to allow them to move further down the road. This is where some of the police are standing. The police are just off to the side of us here. We're also going to be moving back while they move in, and we're just running for cover now, because they are advancing behind those makeshift shields and taking the police on head-on, throwing rocks directly at them. And these are some of the running battles that have been going on here on the main road, on this normally busy stretch of road between police and these students for at least the last 2 hours or so. It seems at this point not going to stop anytime soon unless there is some kind of intervention over and see whether that would be whoever is commanding these students or whether there's an intervention from management, but some kind of external
Desmond, I'm going to stop you there for a moment.
From the past, Gareth, that this can continue for hours on end.
Desmond, I'm going to stop you there for a moment. I'm going to ask two things. One, obviously, as they advance, you and the camera person, please stay a safe distance. Two, there does seem to be a slight disconnection between your microphone and the camera. So I'm going to just update viewers on what we're looking at. Perhaps just take a moment and see if you can't just give the microphone cable a bit of a wiggle there and see if we can't get a slightly better connection. Desmond Tathia, while you do that, we are live outside excuse me, the Mangosuthu University of Technology. What has been for the last 2-3 hours, these running battles between the SAPS, you can see them there firing rubber bullets at a group of about 40 to 50 by my count, protesting students. It's important to remind you why this is happening. They're protesting against exclusion from fees. And also exclusion from financial assistance. They're protesting against that. Many students feeling that they're being discriminated against. Part two of the concern here is the historical debt that many of these students are still dealing with, not only while they're in university, but even once they leave university. They want the historical debt of students and student loans to be completely scrapped. So we're seeing at the moment that group were just chased back inside by the police. Dason, you're back with me, I believe.
Yes, I am, and I hope that we are to maintain. My cable may have been stretched so apologies for the breakup in connection there. My colleague Neil just tells me that our tripod has been taken by the student in that earlier on. So they've taken that piece of equipment that was at the spot that you saw us at earlier. Taken the tripod, they're now taken inside. They're now once again back on the road here. The concern now, Gareth, is that every time they are making sure that those that are among those that are throwing the rocks are shielded and protected by those makeshift shields that they have at the front. From what I saw the last time looked like a mattress and possibly a bed base. They're now making their way back down the road. The police are behind us. Let me give you a sense of what's happening behind. This is the police contingent that is taking care of the situation. There have been a few more officers that have arrived. Members of the community are also gathered along the roadside here. Now, some of them live nearby and need to use this road to get to their home, but they haven't been able to get any closer because they've been held off by police who've blockaded the road further down, obviously for the safety of the public at this point, because there is no telling exactly what will happen next. Initially, we had thought that the students would be confined to those gates. We had seen when we here, but it seems now, as a rock flies past me to my right, that they are willing to engage police and to come out and attack them directly in full sight and on this very public road.
As you speak about engaging with the police at the moment, and obviously this is not the kind of scenes we want to see in South Africa, but the engagement needs to go beyond the throwing of rocks at police and police being forced to retaliate. What has the engagement been, to your understanding, Dason, between the students, perhaps their representative councils or the SRCs, and management? Clearly, it hasn't come to anything fruitful. They're going to just essentially repeat this protesting action all the time. Have you heard from the SRCs?
We haven't yet, Gareth, and that's also something that is quite important. But you know, one of the challenges that we've seen in the past, and I'm actually wondering at this point if it's any different here, is that sometimes the engagements that take place between the elected structures and the official bodies, so you've got your SRC, which is an elected structure, as well as the university management, those decisions or those discussions don't always translate very well to those people that are on the ground. And sometimes you find that there is a disconnect, even though there are meetings that are taking place. And I'm speaking generally here, not in this particular case. So that's why I say it is an important conversation to have, especially with the SRC, to find out if they are speaking as one voice, if the SRC actually officially supports this kind of violent protest. And among the conversations that we need to have, I list that as a priority, along with the one with university management, about how they plan to bring the situation under control. Because as you rightfully said, this is not something that we should be seeing, although it is something we are seeing more and more regularly and on a more violent level than ever before.
If you've just joined us, we're now heading up to 25 minutes after 9 here on Newslink. The protests outside the Mangosuthu University of Technology. You would have just seen our camera person, Neil, panning to the left, and you would have seen what looks like another one of these protesting students in a red shirt now trying to, it looks like, Dason, come in essentially from your left-hand side. So now you're not only dealing with the students directly in front of you on the road, but it looks like they're now trying to come around to your left-hand side as well.
Exactly. Then that's what I think they've been trying to do. What they have been doing for just about the past 10 or 15 minutes is trying to get as far down this road as they possibly can. So they're almost just pushing their boundaries to a certain extent, just seeing how far they can get before police start firing, taunting police. They are singing now from where they are, but that's just been the nature of it. It is just a show of force. It is taking on police as much as they can while using the university as a place of refuge. So they come out, they engage with police, and that's what's been happening now, and that's why I say it has been escalating to a certain extent. And they are now not even running back into the university. They've now just gathered there on the road outside, and they are waiting there. So police are also on standby. You'll see some of the members here in front of me now. They are discussing how best to approach this situation, because even though there is such a large group there, not all of those that are standing there are those that are slinging rocks and throwing bottles. So they need to be careful, very careful, how they approach the situation while trying to bring it under control. We were also told a short while ago that we should move our vehicles down the road because they were scared that it would be damaged. I see police have also made sure that they keep the public as far back as possible. Let me show you, while these police continue to engage, what the rest of this road looks like. As I mentioned, this is normally a very busy road. It is the main road that you will drive along when you enter Umlazi. And this is now the scene. You see some officers still coming up from the bottom of this road. There are more vehicles that have been deployed as the situation has just been deteriorating over the past 20 minutes or so. So now it'll be key for us to just have a conversation with police to find out how they're going to approach the situation now that the students are back onto the main road and are going to be, it looks like, having a discussion among themselves.
Dason, while you try and see if you are able to get a comment from one of the officers, bearing in mind the SAPS are in the middle of an operation, while you try and see if you can do that, Dason, interrupt me at any moment you need me to stop. Let's just look at the kind of financial damage that has been experienced at universities in KZN. This is a report coming out on the 31st of March this year. It's some 27 to 32 million rand worth of damage has been caused at universities, not necessarily Mangosuthu University of Technology or MUT, but at universities around KZN. That's the kind of financial damage that has been called, and also the Minister of Higher Education, Blade Nzimande, Dason Tathi, is saying he wants law enforcement to act swiftly against acts of violence, and I imagine this is exactly what he's talking about. But having said that, the police also need to be very careful in how they handle this kind of situation. You've been in so many of these. Does this essentially just become a running battle between students and police all day till eventually the students get tired? Or how generally will the police decide, okay, enough is enough now, we're moving in? And what does that generally look like in your experience?
And that normally happens very quickly, Gareth, which is why we're watching the situation this closely. While I talk to you, two things are happening. The one is that the students seem to be moving in this direction, and behind me there's a meeting that's being held with police, and the officers are being briefed now. So often when they do move in and they take full control of the situation, that's normally what it looks like, where they have to make a decision and have to move very quickly to ensure that happens. And the words were not even cold, and that seems to be what's happening right now. We're just walking with police now, Gareth. We're going to take you closer. You'll see the numbers have grown slightly. I don't want to preempt anything, but generally police would engage the students verbally. They would normally issue them a warning. They would ask them to cease and desist from what they're doing. If that order is not complied with, then they would take the necessary action. But let's follow these officers now to see exactly how they plan to approach the situation.
Right, just once again.
As I say that, Gareth, there is still a man I can see just throwing rocks in the direction of police that are approaching. What's also going to make this difficult is the fact that many of them have their faces covered. So it becomes a bit of an issue when it comes time to arrest. They've moved in, Gareth. Let's get closer. Those are the stun grenades. Okay, police have now entered the university premises. Gareth, I'm going to get you as close as I possibly can, while being safe.
Please do it safely as well, remembering our journalist, Dason Tathi, and our camera person at the moment not wearing a helmet. So they are, of course, going to try and stay with police as they move into Mangosuthu University of Technology. But obviously, we want them to do it as safely as possible. We've had rocks and debris and even bottles being thrown directly at the police and our team since early this morning. If you have just joined us, 32 minutes after 9 o'clock, police are now inside the premises.
It looks like someone's been arrested, Gareth. I'm just taking you closer here. Let's find out what happened. It looks like someone's been arrested.
All right, Dason, we'll stay with you. You take this.
Let's go. Okay, they're leading the student out. Trying to handcuff him now. While the student is being let out, police are still searching the premises. They're looking for those other students that we saw earlier, some of them wearing those red t-shirts and red masks. And we've just the campus. Just going to do let's have a quick look here, Gareth, just to see. I see some of these students are off to the side here, but this group seems to be a lot calmer. Police are now telling them to leave the campus.